Welcome into the Birds of the Roundtable. We are in the off season, but we're not to the part of the off season where we are struggling for things to talk about because this week the Eagles have announced coordinator hires on both sides of the ball, bringing in Vic Fangio on the defensive side, Kellen Moore on the offense, both names that Eagles fans should be pretty familiar with. And so we're going to talk about it tonight. We're going to break down these guys, what we expect to see from them. And then at the end of the show, we're going to give our 3 steps to fixing the Eagles in 2024 and beyond. I'm joined by Dibes, as always. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mr. Crockpot. Also joined by Ryan Reese. Give him a follow on Twitter at Philly Sports PSA. David is missing in action tonight, but hopefully will be back with us next week when we revisit our preseason over-unders predictions. One of our favorite shows of the year. So if you missed that one last year, be sure you tune in next week. We're going to revisit those. We're going to old takes expose ourselves on everything we got wrong, on everything they got wrong. We're going to talk about everything I got right. It'll be a lot of fun. But Dibes, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. I got the bug. I'm back. I'm excited about these Eagles moves that we're going to be talking about tonight. It's been a long time since I've had some level of optimism, but here we are, man. Go Birds, baby.
Go Birds. Ryan, how you doing tonight?
Yeah, I'm with Dibes here, man. I always get a little bummed the first week or so after the season ends, and then it's off season mode kicks in, and I'm thinking draft. I'm thinking free agency. I'm thinking all that already. So I'm ready to get into it. I'm ready to. I'm ready. I'm ready for everything. I want March to be here so we can start free agency. This is one of my favorite times of year, the off season, early off season.
All right, it's the time early off season, and then like after the draft into training camp. Every team has hope. So
I think a part of it is too, like the Senior Bowl just started today, so I'm all footballed up, man. I'm just like, give it to me now. I need more. I need my fix.
Yeah, absolutely. I was asking Dibes off air, Ryan. You hopped in. I didn't ask you, but have you been following all the Senior Bowl stuff? Are you keeping up with that very well?
Yeah, I am following a few people on Twitter so that I can get updates of who's looking good or nice big whether somebody has big play or whatever. I'm all dialed into this. I absolutely love this, and like I said, this year certainly more than last year, and more than the year before that. I feel like each year I kind of get a little bit more involved, and this year, obviously, working with Dibes doing all of our college football content. I'm like super in, and I'm locked in. I'm loving these guys, and I can't wait to hear more throughout the week.
Quinyon Mitchell is dominating. So if anybody doesn't know who Quinyon Mitchell is, he's a big-time Eagles target. He's a cornerback out of Toledo with great length, great physical measurables, and great in coverage. So if you're looking for a corner that could be a dark horse to the Eagles at the end of round 1, make sure you know about Quinyon Mitchell, man.
Yeah, he talked to the Eagles yesterday as well. So
yes, sir.
All right. Well, we will have a lot of time this offseason to get into the draft, and we'll certainly do that. But that's not today's show. Today, we are getting into these coordinator hires. And you guys want to start with Kellen Moore or Vic Fangio? Where do we want to kick this off?
Let's do Kellen Moore. I think that's the sexier topic.
Sure. Okay, let's do it. So the Eagles announced, he was the second announcement. The Vic Fangio thing was announced first. Kellen Moore came later. So Kellen Moore in the Harbaugh going to Los Angeles. Kellen Moore is out. Harbaugh's bringing in his own people. That immediately made Kellen Moore available and probably one of the more in-demand offensive coordinators. And he landed in Philadelphia almost immediately. Ryan, what are your initial thoughts on Kellen Moore to the Eagles?
Listen, when you look at Kellen Moore and you kind of look over the last 2 years, the 1 year in Dallas and the last year in the Chargers, you look at the motion rate that he runs. It is significantly running motion twice as significantly more than the Eagles did last year. So you have that going against for you, I should say. Also, his yak. He traditionally is top 5 yak team with the Cowboys and with the Chargers, and that's what the Eagles thrived on our Super Bowl year. And we went away from that, or we weren't able to sustain that. I think we ended up in like the mid-20s, when we were kind of a top 8 yak team, and so that's certainly something that caught my eye immediately. Is the two things that I think help for the Eagles: the motion, the yak, and that to me means plays designed to get yards after catch. And bringing back the slants, because apparently we forgot what they mean. So, utilizing A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith in the best ways that we can, and get them into space, give them some room to run, and they'll take it all. So that's what I'm most excited about. And also, I feel like he utilizes the running back more. Certainly when he had Tony Pollard, I think they were 3rd in rush attempts that year. So certainly, any Eagle fan that's clamoring for the run, all you guys hanging out outside of the NovaCare complex will love the fact that he at least acknowledges that we have a running back and wants to utilize him a decent amount.
Yeah. Dibes, what sticks out to you about the Kellen Moore hire, and do you think it's going to help?
Yeah, it's absolutely a step in the right direction for the Philadelphia Eagles. This guy who ran some pretty damn good offenses under several different coaches, absolutely a move in the right direction. And I'm not sure the Eagles hired him for stability. I'm not sure what, I don't know how much I should read the tea leaves into this. Is he maybe a guy that replaces Sirianni if things kind of fall apart? Is he a guy that comes in and kind of teaches Nick Sirianni the ropes on how to use concepts, that the Eagles clearly do not have play design experience with, like heavy motion? Even if he's a one and done, I think if Nick wants to or is going to be kind of a non-play calling head coach, the goal is kind of to help Nick gain that experience and comfort with different outside voices and concepts. So it's really a win-win across a lot of different scenarios for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think we should definitely expect to see a decent amount of motion, of course, just like Ryan said. I think we should expect Hurts to be under center a lot more in 2024. I expect more from like the alignments and formations to kind of create more mismatches on offense, mismatch advantages. I think we'll see a strong mix of quick game to dropbacks to kind of, keep the timing of the snap to release kind of highly varied. And that alone, man, will, it'll make it that much harder for Jalen Hurts to blitz Jalen Hurts, especially when you don't know exactly what the pocket's going to look like, where the ball's coming from, how long the ball will be back there in the pocket. I think the quick game from Kellen Moore is really going to help exploit the holes that we have seen, especially in 2023. So overall, I just think it's a huge improvement for the Eagles, man. I'm stoked.
Yeah, I love the Kellen Moore hiring. If I knew when I made my offensive coordinator list, he would be available as an offensive coordinator, he would have been number 1 on the list. He brings experience as a play caller, which is certainly important. He checks the fresh ideas boxes that, they talked about in the pressers, and you guys talked about the motion rate. And people think that, people have in their head the Chargers were a disaster this year. Kellen Moore got fired. If you exclude the last 5 games of the season when Easton Stick was their starting quarterback, they ranked 9th in EPA per pass and 10th in explosive pass rate. Now, their defense was a complete disaster, and their head coach got fired, and the new head coach wanted his guys, and that happens all the time. But I don't think this was a definitive year one way or another for Kellen Moore. Like, I really expected him to take the league by storm with Justin Herbert, and that didn't happen. And there were certainly receiver issues, and their offensive line was atrocious. There were issues there. So it wasn't the definitive answer on Kellen Moore that I thought we might get this season. But when you look at some of the things the Eagles struggle with, against the blitz, Dak Prescott was consistently good against the blitz under Moore. He was second in success rate against the blitz every season from 2020 to 2022. This year without Moore was the first time Dak's ever been under a 50% success rate against the blitz. He did still rank fifth in the league, so it's not like he was just awful at it, but it was a step back. You talk about, sequencing plays, and I don't think the Eagles did that very well this year. And I think Kellen Moore does a fantastic job sequencing plays. I think he's done a good job over the course of his career of playing to his quarterback's strengths and mitigating their weaknesses. Now, he's never worked with a quarterback that's as mobile as Jalen Hurts. And so I'm really interested to see how that's utilized, because that's not what you typically think of with Kellen Moore. I was listening to a podcast, an interview he did last offseason. I think it was Peter Schrager. And I put this tweet on Twitter, but Schrager was asking him about his philosophy with the offense. And he said, quote, "We want to aggressively take what the defense gives us. If they give us something vertical, take it and trust our playmakers to pay it off. And if not, take the check down to get another first down, and then we'll dial up another one."
Did you say
and
check
down? Yeah, he said the word check down, so I was all in. My ears perked up. But I like that a lot. And then the other thing is throwing over the middle. Now, this could be a Jalen Hurts issue, sure. But if you look at the Cowboys last year and this year, a year with Kellen Moore and a year without, they were 11th in percentage of throws over the middle last year. They were 22nd this year. It dropped dramatically. The Chargers were 32nd a year ago without Kellen Moore. They were 24th this year with Kellen Moore. Both teams threw over the middle dramatically more with Moore running their offense. Now, this will be prove it time for Jalen Hurts. The Eagles have run a very simple offense that it both didn't ask Hurts to do much and asked him to do too much at the same time. Moore is going to ask him to read out more things pre-snap, which I think Hurts does a good job with. He's going to put more on Hurts' plate. He's going to give Hurts the answers. And then it's up to Hurts to be able to solve it when the bullets are flying live. And so I think we're going to learn a lot about Hurts this year, but I'm really excited by the Moore hiring.
How do you think Hurts will handle a more motion offense? Because sometimes that doesn't gel with every quarterback.
Yeah, it's interesting. I want to know who doesn't want motion. Is that Sirianni? Was it? We'll find out this year, I guess, because if Moore is working with Hurts and Sirianni supposedly hands off on the offense and we're not running motion, then you think it's probably Hurts. But I struggle to understand why a quarterback wouldn't like pre-snap motion, because it just gives you information. I can understand why quarterbacks wouldn't like under center play action. You got to turn your back to the quarterback, things like that. But not wanting motion really doesn't make sense to me unless you're trying to be like a tremendously fast tempo team. And the Eagles aren't really that. They go no huddle, but they don't really run tempo.
Yeah.
Yep. What do you guys think about the whole Dallas Cowboys improving without Kellen Moore take? We've seen that a lot on Twitter. Any thoughts?
I think last year Dallas had one receiver and that was it. And this year they had more than one receiver, and that turns out that makes a pretty big difference. If you look at Dallas's numbers from last year to this year, they were a good offense both times. I think it has a lot more to do with getting Brandon Cooks in the building and getting him activated. And Michael Gallup still wasn't great this year, but was better.
Healthy.
I don't put a lot of stock into that personally.
And it's important to note the Cowboys just feasted on bad defenses and really struggled against really good teams. The Cowboys averaged 22 points a game against playoff teams. 6 of the 9 picks were against playoff teams from Dak. Just worth it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on Kellen Moore or any other points you guys want to make before we move on to Fangio?
No.
All right. Well, let's throw it over to Vic Fangio then. So he was the first domino that fell when it announced that he and the Dolphins were mutually parting ways. And Fangio is now landing in Philadelphia as their defensive coordinator. He's already making moves. We saw Clint Hurt, the defensive line coach and then defensive coordinator of Seattle, landed with the Eagles as their defensive line coach. There's other dominoes falling there. But Ryan, I'll throw it to you first again. What do you think of the Vic Fangio hiring?
Yeah, listen. I'm still kind of 50-50 on it. I think it is a good hire in the long run, and everybody talks about all the Vic Fangio disciples and running through the league, and obviously what better way to have the guy. But I kind of wanted to get away from that whole tree, if you will, kind of get something in here a little fresh. But I will say, he seems to value linebackers a little bit more than we've recently seen. And for anybody who knows me, that's certainly a big point of emphasis for me. Whether or not we actually do anything is another. But listen, I think from what we got last year, I mean, the three of us could coach a better defense. I am happy that we got a guy. I'm also happy that we have a guy that has had coaching experience. I think that's important for Nick to have, someone there that he can kind of lean to and say, hey, just, what did you do in this situation, or, et cetera, et cetera. So, but, the one thing I did read, and this maybe goes along with Clint Hurt too, is dropping. They tended to drop their edge rushers into coverage more at a more or equal to more slightly more rate than we did last year, and that's no bueno. So I'm hoping that that's just kind of one of those things, and it's more of a stat than an actuality. So, but all in all, I am happy. I know it kind of sounds like I haven't been saying happy words, but I am happy. I'm excited. And honestly, I hope he brings kind of a brand new attitude to this defense that they sorely need, honestly.
All right. Dibes, what about you? Were you a little under-inspired maybe by the Fangio hire, or what do you think?
I get where Ryan's coming from. Absolutely. It made sense, given what, the state of this team. I personally was hoping they would go for younger, but I knew that was never in the cards for the Birds. But I need to see results. If we're going to stick with the same defense, it's all about results in 2024 in two main areas: turnover differential and explosive play differential. The Eagles ranked 27th in turnover differential with a -10. Explosive plays, are 10 plus yards or more on runs, 16 plus yards or more on passes. The Eagles were tied for 20th in explosive play differential with a -13. When you look at Vic Fangio in Miami, they ranked 12th in turnover differential with a +2, second in explosive play differential with a +57. We need to get back to that type of defense and start getting into positives in a lot of different areas. So I need to see more execution from this defense, and I don't think we're going to see a lot of changes on defense. This system typically revolves around two deep safeties. It typically involves less in the box, trying to slow the run down with less defenders in the box. We're not going to see the Eagles start blitzing anytime soon. That's just not what we should be expecting. I think, the Dolphins rushed 5 or more defenders on just 12% of the plays. That was 26 in the NFL. And Fangio rushed 5 or more 15.5% of the time in 2021 with the Denver Broncos, which was 14th most. And circling back to Ryan's point, The Dolphins tied with the New England Patriots in surrendering the fewest explosive runs in 2023 with Fangio with 32. And why is that significant? We could talk about the Miami defensive line, but the Dolphins also spent significant capital at linebacker. They ranked fifth in the NFL in positional spending in 2023, nearly $20 million on linebackers. Jerome Baker, David Long Jr. When you look at the Eagles linebacking core, just a little over $6 million. Meanwhile, Patrick Johnson and Ben Van Sumeren, those two have a combined 88 defensive snaps last season, are the only linebackers currently under contract for the 2024 season. For me, I'm excited because that means they have to start looking at linebacker with significant capital. So that's my take. And we're probably going to be talking a lot about that when we start getting into how to fix the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, interesting thing I came across today. I was doing a deep dive into Fangio for a podcast I'm recording with Johnny later this week for BGN. So you guys can check that out if you want to. We're going to go real deep into Fangio this week, Kellen more next week. But one of the things I came across, Fangio, one of his tent poles of his defensive philosophy is that he needs his interior defensive linemen to eat up double teams. And he does it because of exactly what Dibes said. It's 2 high shells pre-snap. You will see 2 safeties high, light boxes before every snap. Now, he doesn't stay that way. He has one of the most rotation-based defenses in the NFL, and so his safety play is really important. But specifically pertaining to linebackers, because of the way he asks his defensive tackles to play, which, by the way, lines up really well with what Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis did at Georgia, the linebackers are usually kept clean by those double teams up front, and the linebackers are asked to play fast. They need to be athletic, especially so they can cover backs out of the backfield. They can blitz. Nakobe Dean's such a good fit for that if he can stay healthy. Like, he's almost an identical match for David Long physically, who's a linebacker that Miami had this year. They're both 5'11". Nakobe Dean weighs 2 pounds more. His wingspan is 1 more inch. Like, they're identical physical profile. And Long was a incredibly high-level run defender for Miami this season, while also generating 23 pressures on 88 pass rush snaps. Like, if Nakobe can stay healthy, you can plug him into that. And his running mate was Jerome Baker, a guy who could be a candidate to follow Fangio to Philly. So I would be really interested to see that. But I think there's some misconceptions out there. Well, actually, let me start with this. I'll say the Dolphins this year were 7th in EPA per play allowed and 4th in success rate following their bye week. So from week 11 on. And they were tremendously beat up. They lost Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, both of their edge rushers. Andrew Van Ginkel stepped up, and then he got hurt. Jerome Baker was out at times. Xavier Howard was out at times. Javon Holland missed some games. And they still played really well down the stretch. Now, people see the Dolphins collapsing from like maybe the 1 seed to a wild card to getting beat out in the first round. A lot of that had to do with the offense, more so than the defense. Going back to 2011, Fangio has had a top 5 DVOA defense 4 times in 12 years. He had a top 5 EPA defense 3 times in the last 11 years. He had a top 10 success rate defense 4 times in 11 years. And he never had a disaster defense like what we just saw outside of 2015 in Chicago, which was his first year there. He took over a horrible defense, and he steadily improved it year over year to the point that in 2018, he was number 1 across the board, and he got a head coaching job in Denver that didn't go well. Maybe he's just not a head coach. But the two big myths that I've seen people perpetuating online, the reason they don't like the Fangio idea is say, well, it's just more soft zone coverage. It's really not, though. Miami ranked middle of they were basically league average in man coverage rate this year. Their top coverages they used, They used cover 3 on 35% of their snaps, which was slightly below league average. That's that rotation we talked about. They used cover 6 at 21%, which was the second highest in the league. They used cover 1 17.5%, which was 2% below average. They used quarters coverages 13.5%, which is 2% below average. They used cover 0 on 6.5% of their snaps, which was the 4th highest rate in the league. Which gets to my other one, that he doesn't blitz a lot. And Dibes gave the number about 5+ rushers, and that's true. And it depends on how you want to chart blitzing, because a lot of Fangio's blitzes are like creeper pressures where you bring a nickel and you drop an edge off the other side, or you bring a safety or a linebacker and you drop an edge out off of the other side. So you're rushing 4. I chart that as a blitz. We're sending a guy that the defense or the offense didn't expect us to send. And if that's the way you define blitz rather than by pass rusher, he blitzed on 31% of opponent dropbacks in 2022, which was league average. His sim pressure rate was the highest in the NFL. Cover 0 usage was 4th highest. So I think Fangio is synonymous with light box quarters coverage. And that's what he was like brought about in the early 2010s. But he's a guy that he's got all the tools in the tool chest. He's been around the league a long time, and I think he does a good job of crafting game plans. I think he did a good job this year with Miami, and the numbers don't bear that out. 19th in DVOA, 15th in EPA, 16th in success rate. But again, you got to remember, you cannot have a more dramatically different system from Brian Flores than Vic Fangio. It takes time. His top corner missed all of training camp and half the season, and they were tremendously beat up. So I'm really excited by the Fangio hire. The one thing I can guarantee you is that the Eagles secondary will not just look totally clueless week after week like they did this year. Like, he's going to teach the defense, and the guys are going to understand what they're supposed to do. And that's going to make a world of difference. So I'm excited about it.
Let's get some comments real quick.
Yeah.
Any word on Ronaldo Hill? I heard Kellen Moore has his own personal quarterback coach. Any thoughts on that? I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
I haven't heard any offensive positional coaches as of yet. Just only a few on the defense so far.
Yeah. And then, are you guys okay with keeping Sirianni?
It's not what I would have done.
I was not okay with Sirianni. I wanted to move on, but it was the more logical move if you're trying to compete. So it's what it is.
Yeah, it's not the move I would have made, but if you're going to do it, this is the way to do it. Bringing in a veteran DC to run the whole defense, bringing in an offensive coordinator that's an up-and-comer that has lots of experience still and is going to run the offense. Like, that's the way to do it. They're trying to mold him into the Harbaugh, Tomlin type CEO coach, and so we'll see if it works.
Yep. All right. Let's get into just 3 easy steps to fix the Eagles.
All right. Are we like each given a step, or are we all given our own 3 steps?
We're all given our own 3 steps. I got my 3 steps.
All right. Lay it on us, Dibes. You go first. Give us your 3.
There's my banner. All right. Fixing this Eagles in 3 steps. I'll go number 3. It's we're going to be repeating ourselves quite a bit here, but number 3 is Howie changing his philosophy about the linebacker and safety positions. If the Eagles 2023 season hasn't even altered Howie Roseman's view of the linebacker position just a little bit, I think we're all doomed from the jump. I expect the Eagles to continue to build through the trenches. I don't expect any drastic changes, but hopefully 2023 was enough for Howie Roseman to wake up and smell the roses just a tad, and maybe, just maybe, the Eagles get some talent, some speed, some guys that want to hit people, at the back 7 of this defense in 2024. So that's my number 3. My number 2 is go full Kansas City Chiefs with the Eagles secondary. I want a complete rehaul. I'm looking at cutting James Bradbury post June 1st release. That's going to save a lot of money. cut Kevin Byard, saving $14 million. Cut Avonte Maddox, save $8 million. Sign L'Jarius Sneed. We already talked about that on my previous show last week. That play he made last week was one of the best playoff moments I've ever. That was just a game-changing moment for that. But even if it's not Sneed, I want to see the Eagles get significantly younger in the secondary. That's what I meant by that. Like rookie contracts, maybe even double dip at corner. But I want to see this Eagles secondary infused with elite talent. And that starts with the draft. That starts with signing guys in free agency that are younger. I think Sneed's only, 27, 28 years old. So he's a younger dude. But my number one, if we're talking about getting the Eagles back on the right track, the easiest one is getting Jalen Hurts involved in the run game again. And like Shane said at the start of the show, exploring the middle of the field. In 2022, Johnny Page put out an amazing article on BGN that really emphasizes this on Jalen Hurts. But we all know the stats. I mean, he wasn't as explosive in 2023 as he was in 2022. He was playing through injury. The design runs to keep defenses off balance in 2023 we're not there. So, can Kellen Moore teach Jalen Hurts to utilize the middle of the field? We have not really seen it. According to Johnny Page, Jalen Hurts threw to the middle of the field 17% of the time in 2022. In 2023, it was 11%. That is real room for improvement. A real method to put this Eagles offense to a different level in 2024. So those are my main three areas. It starts with defense. It starts with getting younger on defense. And then it ends with Jalen Hurts and unlocking him and getting him back to that MVP level by targeting the middle of the field with Dallas Goedert, maybe a tight end too. I don't know. But also, getting him involved in the run game again, man. This team was so elite when they had that. So those are my three.
All right. I like it. Ryan, give me your three. Lay them on me.
All right. So, Dives pretty much called it. We're probably all going to have maybe like 5 total things here. But I think my number 3 is bringing back an attitude on defense, a willingness to hit, a willingness, I want to bring back the defense where you're feared. Like people don't want to go up against you because they know they're gonna get hit in the mouth, and that's a team effort to think that way. And we have the guys. We have a good amount of those guys, and we could add some other, hopefully some young free agents and draft picks. But I just think the overall attitude of this defense needs to actually be, something where people eventually fear this team, and it starts with that attitude. Number 3, basically to kind of say what Dive said. Howie needs to completely think different. He hopefully realizes what he tried to do last year was the epic failure that it was, and that he doesn't try to do that again. Realize that you need to allocate resources to the linebacking and safety positions. I mean, you literally have an ability to completely shake up both of those positions. You could sign a linebacker, sign a safety, draft a linebacker, draft a safety. Boom, those 2 positions completely change. Go from worst to one of the best. And it's two simple things. So that needs to absolutely change. My number 1 is we absolutely need to get back. By the way, I love that cue. Cut Quez. We need to get back to what this team does well. It seems like last year we got away from that. We went away from the types of plays that we excelled at, that we got yards and chunks of yards, and we started forcing plays, and forcing throws to certain people. And, we got to go back to what we do well. And I think Moore is going to do that in a lot of ways. He's like I said earlier, he's a big yak guy. And we went away from that. We went away from those type of plays that really exploited other defenses and got AJ Brown and Smith into space and just ran for days. So figure out, and again, every team every year is different, but figure out what this team does well and actually, maximize it. Don't, and to almost to Dive's point, with Hurts, maximize what he does well. Get him more involved in the running game, and hopefully this was just some lingering injury that kind of slowed him down a bit. But get him back to unlocking Hurts. And again, I am pretty confident that Kellen Moore is the guy to help unlock this offense and go back to what we do best.
All right. So my first step one, is hire Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore. So they're already down the road. It's already going well. Step two is get safety help now. Kevin Byard is going to be cut. There's no way they're going to keep him at that number. Maybe he takes a dramatic pay cut, but they're not going to pay him $14-15 million. And so you have Reed Blankenship, and then you've got Sidney Brown, who's going to be rehabbing all offseason and may not be ready to go at the start of the year. So you have got to invest in safety. Safety is vital to the Fangio scheme. He asks his safeties to have the range to fit the run from depth, to rotate into single high and play center field, to be the whole player who picks up and runs with crossing routes from slot corners. You need athletic safeties. Think, Javon Holland. You need guys like that. The Eagles have traditionally been in range of taking those guys, and they haven't done it. They've got to. And it needs to start in free agency, because you cannot go into the draft with we must draft a safety in the first round size hole on your roster, because that's how you reach big time. So the Eagles need to sign safeties in free agency, and they need to look there in the draft too. And then this is the biggest pet peeve of mine. Do not draft redshirt players in the first 2 rounds of the draft. The amount of people I've seen talking about taking an offensive tackle to replace Lane Johnson when he retires 3 years from now and being okay with that is absurd. That would be one of the biggest wastes of a first round pick. And that's coming from a team who spent a first round pick this year on an edge rusher that they played 16% of the snaps. You can't do that. Jalen Hurts' contract is ramping up. You have got to draft guys. You have got to get them on the field as rookies early in their careers and let them play. The Eagles have 3 picks in the top 55. All 3 of those players need to contribute as rookies. That doesn't mean they have to be a full-time starter. You could draft a tight end 2, a wide receiver 3 on day 2. And I would be fine with that, because those are roles they can play, they can be used. You cannot walk into this draft and draft an offensive lineman with no path to play, especially now that it looks like Jason Kelsey's coming back. You cannot draft an offensive lineman in the first round, and you should not be drafting one in the second round either. Last year, the Eagles, obviously, Jalen Carter played 48% of the snaps. But there are other picks. There are other 3 picks in the top 66. Nolan Smith played 16% of the snaps. Sidney Brown played 29% of the snaps. Tyler Steen played 6% of the snaps. That's a luxury you don't have. You need to draft guys and you need to play them. Just like Dibes talked about with the Chiefs thing, this defense lacks speed. It lacks physicality. That starts with getting younger. And so I think it should be a pretty heavy defensive investment in free agency in the draft. And these guys need to play. No more planning for 3 years down the road. You brought in veteran coordinators because you think this is a Super Bowl window right now. And it is. You got to get guys that contribute now, not 2 or 3 years from now. So that's my 3 steps. And I will say my 4th step, if we're going to disallow hire Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore, I'll agree with Quentin here. Cut Quez. Get him out of here. Don't want him on the team ever again. So, all right. Going to some comments here. Is there a safety out there in free agency? Yeah, there will be guys. I'll pull up Spot Track real quick, and we can look at a few names. Okay, let's go safety.
Buda Baker, Antoine Winfield Jr., Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Yeah, just to name a couple. So there's definitely some names out there, that's for sure.
Xavier McKinney and Kyle Duggar are two safeties I would be very interested in. Both would kind of fit some of the things that Fangio is probably going to ask guys to do per Spot Track. They've got Xavier McKinney's market value at $10.4 million. What? And Kyle Duggar's at 16.5. I think both of those are way higher than I would pay for either of them, though. So if they go that high, that's crazy. Cam Curl.
He's
really Cam Curl's been a longtime favorite of mine from Washington. Spot Track has his market value at $13.4 million. I would pay that in a heartbeat to get Cam Curl in Midnight / Kelly Green.
I feel like he's been underrated for so long.
Yeah, he has for sure. So there's some guys out there, and we'll see. We'll see what kind of a move they go make. Comment here. Don't know if you talked about it. What are your thoughts on Edgerrin Cooper? I'm higher on him than Trotter. That is a these guys question. I haven't watched linebackers very closely yet. So what do you guys think? Cooper, Trotter, debate it out here.
Hulk, I fully agree. We've been talking about this the last several weeks. I would put Edgerrin Cooper as 1A to Trotter 1B.
Yes.
Obviously you start with the size. Cooper's bigger. He's like 6'3". I think he's just as good as Jeremiah Trotter in terms of getting after the quarterback. Both have excellent closing speed. Both have excellent speed in general. They can go sideline to sideline. I think Trotter's a bit of a more of a playmaker in coverage. I think Cooper has the tools to be really good in coverage, but he's not there yet. He's still very much learning the ropes in that case. And that's what's so enticing about Trotter is that he's got a lot of potential and upside as a modern linebacker in coverage. But we're kind of expecting Nakobe Dean to do some of that as well. But for me, I'm going Edgerrin Cooper. I think pound for pound, talent for talent, I think he's better than Trotter. And I think I have a end of first round grade for Cooper. And one of my favorite scenarios in this draft would be a slight trade back like Ryan and I did on our mock draft show last night. Although I don't think I went linebacker in the first round. I think I went
got our linebackers in the second.
I went Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback, and then I got Edgerrin Cooper in the second round. And I love that for the Eagles. I love the idea, especially if like Terrion Arnold, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Nate Wiggins, your top, edge rushers are off the board. Slight trade back and get really good value with like a corner in Quinyon Mitchell. Ennis Rakestraw is another big name to watch out for at corner. A guy that that has starting potential on the outside, and then also get an extra pick and get a linebacker. And I don't expect, the linebacker position is not very good this year, unfortunately, in the draft. So after Edgerrin Cooper and Jeremiah Trotter Jr., it kind of gets slim pickings. You got Peyton Wilson, who has all the flashes of a modern NFL linebacker, but he's old. He's going to be 24 in April, and he's got amazing production, and he's got amazing tools, but he's also got a ridiculous laundry list of injury history. So you also have to take that into consideration. So 1,000% Hulk mercenary. The Eagles need to jump on one of those two guys, Edgerrin Cooper and Jeremiah Trotter Jr. And I'm going to be upset if they don't. And this is, I fall in this trap every year. There's guys that I get
you fall in love with. You fall in love with these guys.
And they're there, like Kyle Hamilton. They're there.
Yeah.
And the Eagles or Howie Roseman just doesn't do it. So you can easily add Edgerrin Cooper at the top of that list.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, listen, you know what? Let's just take 50 and 54. And, listen, let's just take Cooper and Trot and your linebackers are solved. Draft Newbin or Kitchens in the first. Sign Antoine Winfield Jr. and boom, your safeties are fixed too. Big bang, boom, we're good.
I hate to break it to you, but there is no way that the Buccaneers are letting Antoine Winfield.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it either. They'd be dumb too.
They will almost certainly tag him. Although they do have Mike Evans to deal with, so they only get one tag. But
true.
Anyways, all right. Well, that about wraps it up, I think, for this episode. We talked about Kellen more, talked Vic Fangio, talked our 3 steps or 4 to fixing the Eagles this offseason. So if you join later in the show, you can skip back and see what you missed. Next week, we are going to be going back through our preseason over-unders. We're going to highlight everything Dibes and Ryan were wrong about, everything I was right about. It's going to be a great show, going to be a lot of fun. So David will be back with us. I think we're going to get Phil in because he joined for that show.
Yeah.
So that'll be a fun show. You guys be sure and check that one out. And then who knows? We'll see what the content cycle brings us, what the Eagles spring on us, and we'll start to get into some draft talk and free agency and all those sorts of things. But before we get out of here, Dibes, do you have any final thoughts or anything coming out recently? I know you've been putting out a lot of scouting reports. Plug your stuff and let's get out of here.
Yeah, just real quick. Like, if you love any kind of prospect, I probably have covered them at Edge of Philly Sports. Well over 100 scouting reports on guys. Me and Ryan have hit all but quarterback and running back top 10 positional rankings already. They're already out there. They're getting great views. So thank you to anybody who's watched them or commented on them. Lots more coming. It is Senior Bowl week. Today just got away from me. I was hoping to have my day 1 winners video out today, but I had class, and then my in-laws were here, and then my daughter, I had to get her to bed. It was just impossible. But hopefully there'll be more content coming. But it is tight end week. I'm trying to round out my top 10 tight ends, and Ryan and I did it, but I'm going to make them with highlight reels. So those will be coming out this week as well. This morning, I dropped 5 scouting reports on some dudes. The one guy that I really, really like that I highly recommend you check out is Kamal Haddon, a cornerback out of Tennessee. Super, super underrated cornerback that is, I think, going to climb up the draft board. So Kamal Haddon, Tennessee, check him out.
All right. Ryan, any final thoughts that you want to get out there? Any content you've got coming out? Plug your stuff too.
Listen, all in all, I think I'm pretty excited. We've reset the season. We got 2 new coordinators. We have hope, for at least for the time being, that I'm sure I will, want to cry in the fetal position once they ignore safety and linebacker once again. But whatever. I'll have to wait till that point. But there is hope, and I can't wait to talk all about it. There's so much of this offseason still to come. I mean, Senior Bowl is coming up this weekend, and that's really the start of the draft process. And Combine is the end of February. So there's that. So yeah, a lot of stuff coming up. So buckle in. There's never a dull moment here on Edge of Philly Sports when we're talking about the off season. As far as the rest of the week, I will be live in studio tomorrow for the Wednesday Edge of Philly Sports show with Big Al. And then, normal kind of stuff. I think, Dibes, we got to figure out when we're doing our running backs or quarterbacks. Obviously, we'll wait till the Senior Bowl is officially over.
The buzz has happened already, man. Those guys, I'm so tired. I don't remember. There's a running back that was a big standout today. Keep going. Okay.
But yeah, so either way, you can always check me here on X, and of course all over Edge of Philly Sports. Make sure you go on the YouTube, subscribe, and put on those automatic notifications so that every single time we go live, you're right there to catch all the action. So.
All right. Yeah. Make sure you're following these guys. They've got so much draft content out already. It's crazy. So be sure you're following them. Be sure you're following the BGN feed as well. Dibes and I are about to go record our interior defensive line rankings episode with Mark. That'll come out later this week. I'll have a podcast coming out with Johnny on the BGN feed later this week, doing a deep dive on Vic Fangio. So you can keep an eye out for all of those as well. So we are going to get out of here. We will catch you guys next Tuesday night for our over-under show. Thank you to everybody in the chat. We hope to catch you guys next week. It'll be a fun show. Bring your popcorn. You can poke fun at us for all the dumb things we said 6 months ago about this year's Eagles season. So we'll get the Red X and we'll have a good time. So really looking forward to that. We will catch you guys next week on Birds of the Roundtable. Go Birds.